Hi, so today on our college campus sustainability series, we are with Jennifer Wilson from Georgia State University, and she is the sustainability director. Could you briefly introduce yourself and share how you came into your role as director of sustainability initiatives at Georgia State?
Yeah, so my name is Jennifer Wilson. I'm Director of Sustainability at Georgia State University. The largest university in Georgia. We're mostly in downtown Atlanta, but we also have the 5 premier college campuses across metro Atlanta. Over 50,000 students every single year are attending classes here. And I came, this is probably my 10th year almost in sustainability in higher ed. Worked at another university previously and was really excited to kind of come here and work in more of an urban environment and the things that are taking place in downtown Atlanta, be part of that. So that's, yeah, is that,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
yeah.
I know Atlanta being like a major city, there's a lot of things in sustainability that you could like work on Georgia State campus.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That being said, what are some of the major sustainability initiatives currently underway? Like, what have y'all done in the sustainability department, like related to Atlanta, related to maybe just the
Yeah,
college itself?
yeah. So recycling falls underneath us, and so we have a recycling team that is responsible for diverting over 700 materials every single year that they're working on. It's 13 different items, 13 different material streams that they are working on, and every year we're doing better and better in that. Clothing is a big piece of that, so there's a couple of things that we're doing in the textile space. As you know, clothing in the landfill is it's one of the biggest contributors to landfill. Clothing and food are two of the top areas. These things end up in the landfill. So there's two things that we do that I think are really interesting and speak to kind of what you're talking about with circular closets. So one is we have old uniforms that would say, Georgia State employee on them. And these are things that we can't actually donate because we can't have people looking like they're employees, like buying this at Goodwill, looking like you're an employee and coming in and who knows, doing something nefarious. So those are things that typically we would have sent to the landfill. So instead, what we do is we have a partnership with a nonprofit called the Initiative for Affordable Housing Decatur, and we give them all of our old uniforms. They cut them into strips, and they have a weave house there, and they weave this clothing into things like koozies or keychains or like mug rugs or bags or purses or dog leashes, yoga straps, like all sorts of things. They've made jewelry like little earrings that was made out of textiles or rings or watches, things like that. So, or bracelets, not watches. And so we give it to them, it keeps it out of the landfill, and then it comes back to us repurposed as our sustainability swag. So we'll hand this out to students, and we talk a lot about this as far as people, planet, profit, that triple bottom line. So from the, let's do it kind of backwards, from the planet standpoint, this is keeping these textiles out of the landfill. From the profit standpoint, we are saving money because we're not paying tipping fees for all these clothing, and then we actually buy the swag back as sustainable swag that we hand out for gifts. When students get awards for doing different things, they'll get this sustainability swag bag. And then those funds support this nonprofit vendor who then uses those funds to help support women in transitioning out of homelessness. So it's an Initiative for Affordable Housing in Decatur, and their program is Relim, and it's a weave house they operate. So that's kind of a really interesting model that we do, that we think is a great example of circularity, sustainable fashion. We also have the Panther Swap program at Georgia State, and this was started by students. So we have a student sustainability fee fund here where students pay a fee, and then it is used to support sustainability initiatives, and students will apply to do things through a competitive grant program. And so we had students come to us and say, hey, we think that you should do Panther Swap, and you should just do it. And we said, well, we think you should do it, right? So why don't we hire you as interns, and you will get this program off the ground, and you do it the way you think it ought to be run. And so we've had, that's been around for a little over a year. And we've had close to 10 events, I want to say, in that year that we've done it, and we've had hundreds of students that participated, lots of different tons of clothing that's been diverted, and it's really interesting because it's a way to talk to students about sustainability, and get them interested in it in general, but also really kind of serves as me. Like I mentioned earlier, we're in downtown Atlanta. And so we always say, if you're a student, living in downtown Atlanta or just taking classes, you're down here a lot. Let's say that you decide that you're going to go out with friends afterwards and the weather changes. And all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm really cold. I want to go out, but I don't have a sweater. Well, there's literally no place in downtown Atlanta where you can go buy a sweater, right? You can go buy a pair of jeans. It does not exist. There's no thrift store. There's no retail shop in downtown Atlanta that has clothing. There might be some like boutique stuff, but not very much, and really not like a student budget. So if you're down here, you have to go off campus quite a distance, like maybe 1.5 miles or 2 miles, just to like buy a pair of jeans. And then we also have a lot of students who are, they're on the Pell Grant. They're the first students in their family to come to college, and so they don't just have a whole bunch of money to go buy jeans because they got to pay tuition, they got to pay rent, all that stuff kind of comes first. And then you have a lot of students who come to campus and they've always been wearing clothes because their parents thought, this is how I want you to dress, right? And then they come to college and like, that's not really me, that's my parents, and I am finding myself, and I want different clothing, but I don't have a budget to go do that. So you get a shop internally, and so we'll have these events where students will come, they'll drop off clothing, keeping it at a landfill. They don't want it anymore. They keep it at a landfill, but another student's going to come around and want it. And then students will also come up. Sorry about that.
Okay.
They'll just be shopping for new clothing, and so they're able to come in there. There's no cost to this swap, but it's worked really well. Where we haven't ever gotten so overwhelmed that we're like, we got to just throw everything away because we've got clothing coming in, clothing going out, clothing coming in, clothing going out, and then we also do occasionally some workshops where we will, I talked about the Reloom program, but we will teach students to make their own bags. We'll get some t-shirts, cut them up, tie them up in threads, and help students make their own bags out of that. So those are some of the things we do around sustainable fashion.
Wait, yeah, I love that. I didn't know that you could repurpose, I didn't know there was a nonprofit that would do that, in Atlanta, repurposing old shirts to make all those different accessories. That's really cool, actually. And that's a really good combination of, using Georgia State's, location in, prime Atlanta hub, where there's just, a lot going on and a lot of changes to make, and using campus as in, using the students to, sort of propel more initiatives and kind of get them involved because they're the future of, this country and all of that, too. So, getting them aware is really important.
What I'll do after this, before we're done, is I will go get those textiles. I should have had them in my office, and I'll just put them on the screen for you to see them, and you can kind of.
Oh yeah, that would be great. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll do that in the interview. Yeah,
yeah, and seeing the fact that y'all are located in prime Atlanta, where everything's going on, the city. Are there any challenges that you face at being a large urban university in Georgia?
So sort of two challenges / opportunities. So we're a very hybrid university. So you come on a Georgia State and you don't always really realize that you are on a university campus because we don't own all the land around us. So one of the things we're doing. Our president right now is very into this idea that we need more green space. Our students need a place to hang out and to socialize and to feel like they can, spread on the blanket. And so they've really renovated Hurt Park, which is a mutually owned by City of Atlanta, managed by GSU, but they've really done a lot to make it this better green space that's more activated for student involvement. And then we actually have a whole bunch of green spaces that are being built over the next 18 months. And so, right now you walk through campus and you're like, okay, there's a building there, there's a street there, there's a parking lot there. They're shutting down the street to most traffic. They're making a whole green space out of an area that was really a building that was interesting and historic, but also really didn't work very well because it was such an old building that wasn't really set up for how large we are today, right? And so they've created all this green space in downtown Atlanta. It's an $80 million project at least over the next year and a half. So by the time the World Cup comes to Atlanta, we're going to have this really awesome green space that is it has these sustainability elements, right? Like green space is really good for air quality. It's really good for stormwater management. It's really good for cooling down the environment. You're out there walking the sidewalk and you get hot, but all of a sudden you go under the shade and you feel a lot better. So that is something really great that GSU is doing in downtown Atlanta that kind of gets at that, kind of some of those urban challenges. So we're excited about that. And then one of the things that we're really trying to promote this year is we are the most MARTA accessible campus in Georgia. We have three
Yeah, I
different,
could imagine.
Yeah, we have 3 different MARTA stations, including one called Georgia State MARTA Station. We have a lot of bike lanes that are coming in. We have really good pedestrian infrastructure and some not great pedestrian infrastructure. But it's there. We're not starting from zero. We're very close to the Atlanta Beltline. We're about a mile from there, on multiple directions. The Beltline is this giant loop around Atlanta that is not done yet, but it's very close to being done. So whether you're on the west side, whether you're south, or whether you're east, you're about a mile on the Beltline from Atlanta. And a lot of folks bike all over the Beltline, walk all over the Beltline. And so we've got this accessibility coming in that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, you would have said, oh, there's no way to get there from here. Like, I have to take my car. And now all of a sudden you've got these bike lanes that connect you to the Beltline, that connect to 30 plus neighborhoods around Atlanta. And then we've got all this bus rapid transit coming in that's going to service get you very close to Georgia State from further south. So we've got a lot of really good transportation kind of infrastructure coming our way, and we are trying to do what we can to make sure that folks know about this, know how to find us. They start thinking about, well, gosh, I bike with my friends on the weekend. Why don't I just bike to Georgia State on Monday when I go to classes? So trying to get folks to think about that and know about those opportunities. So there's a big transportation focus as well.
Yeah, and the green space thing, that's like a big like double positive for both the students and for the city. And then with like the Beltline and transportation, public transportation is so big, especially in kind of the pollution sphere of like the realm of sustainability. So like that's also really important and really like amazing to do within Georgia, like within Atlanta, and I feel like that's really good for the university.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Also, I did want to ask you, like, I know, like, there's probably a lot of initiatives that y'all are, like, spearheading. So, like, how do you measure your success within the sustainability, like, within your sustainability programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a bunch of different metrics that we are looking at. So we have metrics related to, excuse me, how many tons are we diverting? And so we're actually working on a public dashboard right now. So hopefully in August we'll be able to have that dashboard public. But we have our own internal dashboard. We can see each month, how much cardboard did we recycle? How much paper did we recycle? How many tons of books did we recycle? And we kind of know what our baseline should be. And then we know that some months we're going to be a little more, some months we're a little low. But if we're a lot lower, then we start kind of asking questions. But again, we are hitting about 700 tons, just what our team is doing. And so we're tracking that. We look at, how many events did we host? How many people came to the events? What was their feedback on that? We look at, we are also involved in a lot of tree and plant initiatives, native plant initiatives. So we might do things like, well, how many trees did we plant last year, or for Arbor Day, or for separate planting initiatives? How many students showed up in that? Because that's a measure of, building services and grounds. They're planting their own trees, which is awesome, but we want to involve students in that and make it an event so students learn what a native tree is for Georgia, learn the importance of those trees, things like that. We've got a food waste app that we're doing in all of our dining halls.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, because food waste is such a big issue. You see all of these major kind of fast food chains like Dunkin' Donuts, they all employees get in trouble for taking the food home or anything like that, and so they have to throw away everything, which is obviously a big problem because just so many things are being wasted when there's hunger is also an issue. So it's just why is food being wasted when hunger is also an issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things on that we have is if you look at Drawdown Georgia, the top, or Project Drawdown, I should say, the top 100 things you can do to reverse climate change, you'll look up there, and like number 2 and number 3 are basically waste less food and then eat more fruits and vegetables. So eat a more plant-based diet. And so we sort of look at those two things, especially the wasting less food. Every bit of food that you put in the landfill is going to generate methane. Methane is 20 times more warming than CO2, right? So when you talk about climate change, about carbon dioxide, methane is actually more warming than CO2, but it's not in the air, it's not in the atmosphere as long. So that's sort of the trick. CO2 is when it's up there for a really long time. But you want to keep food out of the landfill. And so one of the things that we're doing is we use this app called Raccoon Eyes. It records every single plate of food in the dining hall that is returned. And it takes a picture of it, and then it uses AI to estimate, okay, we looked at your plate of food, that looks like half a burger. We know the burger's made out of beef, so we know that half a burger is this many ounces of beef, right? And so they're able to say, here's the top 5 most wasted foods, and here's the top 5 most wasted foods in terms of the number of plates that have this food on it. Like a lot of plates end up having fries on it, which is sort of funny because everybody likes fries, but they always leave like three fries behind, and you're like, just eat the fries and just take a few less fries. And then you also measure it in terms of like just total amount wasted, and so like quantity, tonnage, poundage over time. And so we've been able to look at that data and see certain things like this is kind of weird, but rice, there was a certain time where we had a lot of rice wasted at a certain time. Sorry, my screen went off. We had a lot of rice wasted at a certain time, and we were able to see like, oh, it's whoever is doing Saturday shift is making rice wrong. And so it was just this training thing. And once we trained that person, once dining trained that person, we had less rice being wasted, whereas we wouldn't have known that before. We have no way of knowing that data. We also saw certain things like, like sometimes brownies were being wasted, and we realized, well, we just need to cut smaller amounts of brownies because everybody likes brownies. Like if you're getting a brownie, you're not going into it thinking you're going to waste it. You're just full. So we always thought of this as like the last frontier, like behavior changes being the last frontier in reducing food waste. But what we saw is that we can see certain things in the food waste that we can then tweak what we're doing to spur those behavior changes to get less food waste. This is the examples I'll share with you. We saw that there's a lot of fruit being wasted, which is really weird because, again, like fruit is fruit, right? It has a certain taste. You can't prep it wrong. Certainly could have gone bad, but that's not what was happening here, right? This was just people more fruit on their plate than they actually would eat. So the serving sizes were 2 ounces. We moved them to 1 ounce serving sizes. And what we saw was that we really did see a decline in waste, right? Like if folks wanted, it's like folks are going to scoop 3 spoonfuls of fruit and be like, this is done, right? But now they're scooping 3 ounces instead of 6, and we're seeing less food waste because of that, right? So there's little tweaks that we've seen that actually have led to a decline in food waste at the the student level in terms of the food that they're returning to dining hall. So that's something that we've done that's really been interesting. Looking into fall, what we're really trying to figure out is we'll have these catering events, right? And then after the catering event's over, folks might have 5 sandwiches, they might have 10 sandwiches, and nobody wants to take it home because they're like, oh, I've already eaten it, right? And so some of this stuff would go to the landfill. There's an informal network of like, if you know the students, you can alert students in your department, hey, come get sandwiches. But if you're not in that kind of department, you don't have access to those students, this kind of food might go to the waste. So what we're really looking at is there a way where we can figure out internally how to alert students that, hey, we just had this event, the event's over, we've got a bunch of food left over, come and get it, right? And we talked again about, we got 5,000 students that live on campus, a certain amount of them are Pell Grant students. The Panthers Pantry is really, really popular as far as a free food resource on campus. So how do we make these leftovers that are great, like they're catered leftovers, they're really good, how do we make these available to students who need them, or students who just, they're there working, studying, and they're hungry, and there's a lot of restaurants are closed down, so now they've got this as an option.
Yeah, and that really plays into like the circularity of like the whole, like in the sphere of food waste, like it plays into like we buy food and then we make sure that it's like not wasted and then like possibly give it to students. And then also that's a wonderful use of AI, like of technology to play into sustainability, especially since that's like really up and coming and a lot of people know that it's like getting really big. But yeah. Um, okay, so now that like it seems like Georgia State has like a really good like coverage of all of like the things regarding sustainability. Like you'll have food waste like programs and then clothing waste and then the green space stuff, so covering environmental like specifically. So, how can young people without formal authority like you have make their schools or neighborhoods more sustainable? Like, do you have any like ideas or like specific ways on how they can make changes within their community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think students don't realize how much power they do have, right? So every single administrator will tell you, we are here for the students, right? Like we are here to support the students. There's no reason for us to exist if you're not here, right? And so I think a lot of people really take that seriously. And so if students show up and are, you know, proactive and advocating and also kind of willing to do some of the work to advance this, like you're going to be more successful if like let's say you want some initiative, do something to get towards that initiative. You're always going to have a certain amount of things you can't do because you really do need someone in power to move that, but there's always baby steps that you can take to move forward. So maybe that's a student club that's addressing that. Maybe that's you know, tabling at certain events to bring attention to this issue. Maybe that's working with faculty on certain programs. So you can do those things to get momentum and to demonstrate to administration that these are things that you really care about a lot. But you've got to be, you know, willing to do some of the work, because there's definitely an element of students might say, oh, we want someone else to do it, right? But if you say this is something we care about, we're showing up, we're doing this, you're drawing attention to it. You know, for example, working with SGA as well, so a student government association, making sure that the folks that you've elected in know that you care about these issues. You or someone that you know with these same interests running for SGA on the platform of, hey, we're going to work on this issue, and then being successful, right? That's all going to kind of bring attention to that. So I think students really do have a lot of abilities, but just being able to advocate for that and doing some of the hard work to advance that and showing up goes a really long way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you need to have that commitment and like kind of understand where you want to make changes and kind of what resources you have access to. Totally, like even high schoolers in a public school could create a club, get the support of faculty, and that's really important, like kind of leading up to how aware you are about sustainable or unsustainable practices within your community growing up, and the things that you can do, especially when you have more power in the future. So yeah. I do have one last question for you if you have the time. I know we're like, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. Okay, so this question is kind of like to ask everybody just to see kind of what you think is most important. If you could wave a magic wand and implement one sustainability policy across all the schools in Georgia, what would it be?
So honestly, I think the ability to do renewable energy would be the thing that I would do. It's hard for universities to do it because it's this big upfront cost. And then even figuring out there's ways to do solar now where you're paying it over a longer period of time. Even that is really tricky just because of the way that we fund things, the way that we can't have long-term contracts basically. But it's something that a lot of universities can actually support a lot of solar because we've got these big flat roofs, so we actually could do a lot of solar. And it's very visible, so it kind of shows students, hey, we're doing something. And it could be, a driver letting other folks know, hey, just to my point about students, right? Like if universities were saying, hey, we're deploying solar, we really care about this, then it has this other kind of compound effect where other folks realize like, oh, they really mean it and they're really serious about it. So I think if I had a magic wand, that would be something where you could get multiple universities doing not 15 kW of solar, but like half a megawatt on this building, half a megawatt on that building, a megawatt covering this entire parking lot on this other area. That's what I would kind of wave a magic wand on, but the funding is not there, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
figuring out the finances of that is really complicated. But I mean, it would be really impactful if you could do something like that, I think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I see that. Especially like, like you working in the city, like that's really important for like energy, for not like, I don't know too much about the topic, but yeah, I think that's also a sphere that's like kind of overlooked. Like I feel like it's gotten so kind of, we've talked about energy for so long that it's become overlooked, if you get what I'm saying. Yeah. But that's a really good kind of thought to have if you could do anything you wanted, to pick something that's like would be really good but really hard to do. But yeah. Okay, perfect.
So these are items that were GSU uniforms, right? Typically from Panther Dining, maybe from facilities. And you can see the kind of nubby texture. Like this used to be a t-shirt and some black pants.
Wow, yeah.
And so that was similar, like a t-shirt. I don't know what the white was exactly, but they take these, cut them into threads, and then turn them into like a keychain. This is actually one of the more popular ones, so you can grab that in your bag and you got your keys hanging off it.
I would totally use that.
Yeah.
That's so cute, yeah.
It's a little coin purse. It's Velcros up really nicely, so nothing's gonna fall out. And this is a little koozie, so you put like your soda water or whatever in that, and drink out of that, and it's really great.
Wow, yeah, that looks really like, that looks new. Like I wouldn't be able to tell that it was like it was sustainable and it was made through like old GSU uniforms and stuff like that. That's really cool.
It's not like ratty at all. It's not tattered or anything. It looks really nice. Yeah.
So that's it for today. Thank you so much for being willing to do this interview.